Hello, world. Long time no see. Welcome back to D&D Beyond. I'm Joe Starr. I butted it on this one. I am joined by the incredible Amy Dallen and the equally incredible Saige Ryan. Um, both of whom, hey, let's underscore this. I'm not necessary in this video. Here's why I'm here. We were talking about Saige is a big Druid fan. Amy's got a lot of strong thoughts about Druids. So we were going to do the optimal Druid build today. We were going to walk through building a character, and it occurred to me I've never, of all the classes, Amy was on our Instagram on Friday. She goes on every Friday and does like a little Q&A with the community over there. Make sure you go check that out if you haven't. And she was asking, what the greatest class was, and it occurred to me that I've never played a Druid and just starting fights. But yeah, it occurred to me I've never played a Druid. It's probably the class that I can tell you the least about off the dome. And so I, like any white guy in this space worth his salt, pushed my way into this conversation and completely took over.
You can look. Even though you're my friend, I will let you insult yourself all day. But anybody watching this who's never played a Druid, learning is valid. It is okay to build your first Druid. It is okay to not know what you want to do with a Druid. And I am glad that you are here so that both of us can learn from Saige, who loves of the Druid and who will have tons to share with us. And I just needed that out there, because if you're watching this, there's nothing wrong with not yet having played your first Druid.
Absolutely right. And Druids are a little intimidating.
They are. There's a lot going on.
Weirdness. There's a lot of different ways to play a Druid that comes across as an entirely different class almost, depending on which subclass you pick at level 2.
Let's start there, Saige Ryan. For people who are sitting down, they're playing their first game. They're trying to figure out, okay, well, what do I want to do? Druids, what are they? Why? How do they work?
Well, Druids are a complicated bunch, generally super involved with nature. When you think of the standard Druid, that Circle of Land or Circle of the Moon Druid, they have the ability to wild shape into animals. The higher level that you get, the higher CR rating of animals that you can wild shape into. It can be done for flavor and fun, where you're like, forget it, I'm a rat now, deal with me, I'm in your pocket, fight me. Or it can be really, really powerful, and you can be like, hey, guess what? We're out on the ocean, and I am going to wild shape into an aquatic animal that can swim down and handle this thing we need to get done. They are extremely, extremely flexible, but also, as someone who played a Druid for my very first D&D game, bold move. It's a bold move. I remember sitting down at my GM being like, a Druid's one of the most complicated classes, right? And I was just like, let's go. About it.
Let's do it.
But
so this is for bold players who love Animorphs.
Yes, you're so right.
Okay.
Very much. You get a little bit of everything with some of it's not like a jack of all trades problem, but one of the things you can do is a Druid can lend itself to a number of different playstyles. Obviously, if you're truly focused on trying to optimize, you're going to want to specialize. But fairly early on with Druids, you're going to have a lot of options. Most of the time, you're going to have a little bit of healing right away. You're going to have it's unrelated game, but I used to run around in WoW a lot as my Druid, and I kind of love that I am a Swiss Army knife of various things I can do, and that tends to be true in a lot of different Druid builds. And I love that about it.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. Exactly what you said too about having access to healing spells. You can be relatively sneaky. There's nothing to prevent you from doing that and being kind of the rogue of the party. You're not necessarily going to be a tank. You're probably a little squishy, but you can hit pretty hard as a spellcaster as well.
Well, let's jump into let's get into this. Let's pop over from. I got my character creator ready to go with that happy pride up there in the left. Happy Pride, everyone.
Pride!
Happy Pride!
As your local queer Druid, happy Pride. Heck
hey. Yeah. Aw, hi.
So I had a couple of things in mind.
Our LQD. Yeah. So let's start with this. I think hang on. Let me get the boring stuff out of the way. Drew.
Nice. Drew the Druid. Okay, so
and just
when I got asked to do this, I was asked to put together just a couple of different options in mind. Don't use encumbrance.
Right. I forgot to click it off.
No,
I forgot to click it off.
Joe and I were having
I'm
a big
murder
conversation
DM.
for it about what not to put your DMs through, your players through. I say don't start them at level 1 and don't use encumbrance.
Okay, give us your pitch for the audience of why not to start at level 1. We don't have to get derailed by it, but
Okay, so starting at level 1, it depends on your players. If you have a really experienced group of players, starting at level 1 is something that they can like struggle through. I think especially if you're introducing new players to the game, allowing them not to struggle and allowing them to have access to more of their abilities is an easier way to invest them quickly. And also, you can tell more exciting stories. You can have harder monsters off the bat. You can still be a rude DM, but let me do it with multiple spell slots.
see, I like starting at level 1. I feel like there's a tremendous psychological benefit to knowing that you're at the beginning of a journey. And I do think while you want to balance against people getting frustrated because they feel like they can't do anything, and you have to be like, well, that'll come in time. There is, of course, a corresponding thing which says, especially with new players, if they don't have as many options, it's a little easier for them to focus on what they can do. So as long as you are willing to be kind of a kind DM who might fudge some healing situations, and that's up to you. That's you and your table. I don't mind doing we're all level 1, but I'm not planning to TPK you, so I'm just going to work out whatever I need to. And in the meantime, you will all feel like you started at the beginning. But I feel like both approaches are valid.
I think so too.
That said, if we were going to start this druid at level 1, Saige Ryan. First of all, race. Let's talk. Let's talk race, you guys.
Okay.
Do you have preferred races to start druids with? I mean, my instinct says centaur just because, but that I can't make that the answer to everything.
One animal shape to another. So I don't necessarily have like a go-to preferred race for it. My personal favorite combo is I'm a tiefling girl. I love a tiefling druid. That's one of my favorite characters. But I had a thought. If UA is on at the moment, I'm not sure if it is. I realized that if you were playing a fairy, you could also do this with possibly like a kobold or like maybe a halfling. And you were to go, for instance, Circle of Wildfire Druid. In a technical sense, to be mean to your DM, you could ride your Wildfire Spirit. And I just want you to know that that's a possible thing that I was thinking that as today I was going through what I wanted to build, and I'm really into the Joe just disappeared for a second over that. I'm really into all of the Feywild stuff right now. I've always been into the Feywilds, but like while we're playing with UA, a fairy could, in theory, because you should be immune to the kind of damage that you would get there as a Wildfire Druid, you could ride your Wildfire Spirit.
I'm listening to
which
that.
Is very funny to me.
Let me pop back here. Let me put my my playtest toggle on. Sorry for vanishing.
The basic rules come with, I want to say, just Circle of the Land as your cleric option, right? Player's Handbook adds Circle of the Moon. Those are the two most common sort of classic builds. And of course, Xanathar's expanded on that with Circle of Dreams and Circle of Spores. And then Tasha's gave us 3 new ones. I said Spores instead of Shepherd for Xanathar's, but that's just because I'm reading my notes wrong. Tasha's gave us Circle of Spores, Circle of Stars, and Circle of Wildfire. So if this isn't sounding familiar, it's because Saige is mixing and matching all of the new goodness from the last year or so to create some very intriguing possibilities.
Oh, I dig it. Okay, but sorry if I missed it. We're gonna make this a fairy druid, yeah?
If y'all are into it, I'm into it.
Let's do it. Lead the way. You're my guide. You're my teacher here. So let's jump into let's jump to the wild beyond the witchlight, you guys, and let's go full. Let's go with a fairy. Okay, so in setting up a fairy, Saige, we go traditionally, obviously level 1 out the gate. We're building our character. We get our race's ability score increase. What stats should I be focused on for a druid?
So your wisdom is your spellcasting modifier. So that is going to be top priority. It's going to be the main thing that you use. From there, I would generally go to like con or dex, as just I would also like to be functional and not die. But wisdom is absolute top priority as your spellcasting modifier.
Well, then, so fairies have this option to either increase one score by 2 and then another one by 1, or to increase 3 by 1. So, but it sounds to me like with wisdom being what's really going to be
So
our
important.
workhorse stat with the druid, we'll go 1 and sort of like you mentioned, either con or dexterity
Yeah,
for
that would be great.
for that second one. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? Because it's a fairy, I feel like we should be pretty dexy. So I'm
Yeah.
going to add that. I'm going to add that into dexterity. Languages, horse,
Perfect.
cat.
Done. Also, as a
done
fairy,
and
you
did.
can choose to make your fairy magic casting with wisdom as well, so that those two align really well.
Oh, fantastic! That's actually really, really cool. I'm going to have this fairy also speak Infernal, so that
Hell
they
yeah.
can hang out with the preferred druid build of Saige Ryan. Okay, I love
Amazing.
this. Yeah, we're going to base their fairy magic in wisdom. That's phenomenal. And then we also
If
have
this
that
is-
fey passage and flight.
If this is in fact your first druid, you should note that you speak the language of druids, which is cool, and you and your DM can work out how that's going to play out in your game, but I just think it's neat.
Ooh,
That is
I like
neat.
that. Druid speak. That sounds really cool. So for class, I'm thinking druid.
That's a great idea, Joe.
Let's do it.
Really clever. Now, if you are starting at level 1, a druid is like a really base. Yeah.
Sorry, I just got bodied
Are you
from.
okay? Yeah.
Very clever. That was great. Sorry, go ahead.
If you're starting at level 1, a druid isn't that much of a druid. You're just kind of like a generic spellcaster until you hit level 2 and you can select your circle, because that's when you can start wild shaping or summoning a spirit of your element. Until then, you can just do spells, and that's great and that's fun. And you're like probably good at nature. You're just an earthy spellcaster at level 1. Optionally.
So I think, yeah. So I think what you're saying, Saige, is you'd really like us to skip to the fireworks factory.
I would love to get to the point where we can show off a level after you're able to wild shape and explore more druid abilities. Yes.
Okay, I tell you what.
You can start at level
we've
1, and I
protected the
did with
forest.
my home druid. Home druid, we started at level
We've,
1, but it's very exciting to get there.
Right, and so naturey stuff, probably animal handling, nature.
Animal handling
Yeah.
would probably be important if you're a fairy that's riding Wildfire Spirit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, perfect.
And survival's always a good pick.
Survival, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yep. So let's go ahead and level up here. Let's level up to 3.
All right.
Right here, right now. So Wild Shape starts at 2nd level. So at this point, our fairy has started to turn into all sorts of cool beasts that they've seen before. And this is where, also at level 3, we're going to pick our circle. This is where the rubber really meets the road for characters. Saige, we got a lot of circles to pick from. I know that you have some favorites, some preferences. What are we going with and why?
So I'm going to talk about a few, and then the one I actually want to do. I think Circle of Stars would be a really interesting combination for a fairy as well, because of the kind of ties of those like celestial things that you could flavor really well. And in the Circle of Stars, as opposed to just wild shaping into an animal, you can take on like a starry form, essentially, that is like shaped like constellations, and it just has this like, it has a sparkle to it that just makes my heart happy for a fairy. So I think that would be really, really fun. Circle of Dreams is a really, really interesting one as well, that you could either go with an absolute nightmare version of, or like a really lovely like Tooth Fairy kind of build that I think would be really funny. But because Joe DM'd for me recently for the first time, I would like to do something that specifically I think would be mean to Joe. And I think it would be a Circle of Wildfire. A Circle of Wildfire, because I want the fairy to be able to summon their wildfire spirit and ride it into battle.
I'm sold. Hang on.
I want to break your game, Joe.
Tell me more about this situation.
So
as a
and the basic ones we're leaving on the table are just the circle of the land is your basic gets you access to a bunch of extra spells that will sort of correlate to the kind of land you come from. The circle of the moon will sort of enhance your ability to use wild shapes and give you extra transformation power and more powerful ones. The circle of dreams, like Saige just alluded to, gives you some healing and some fey magic and transport. That I love your suggestions for the different. You could take that a number of different ways. The circle of the shepherd is going to kind of give you animal friends and these totems that can sort of stack with other effects that could create some interesting options. The circle of spores is sort of leveraging the power of decay and weird fungus stuff, which just sounds flavorful and delicious. But circle of stars you just covered beautifully.
Who they themselves was born out of the compost piles that they specialize in.
That's how you became a reborn, and you're now a reborn Circle of Spores druid.
Love it.
I mean, it's incredible. Okay, and then Circle of Wildfire, which is what we are looking at right now, and we will find out what we get from it.
Okay, yeah, so talk to me about a Wildfire Spirit, because I didn't know this was a thing.
Yeah, so your Wildfire Spirit is something that you can summon. It uses the same abilities as Wild Shaping. So like in the beginning, you're only going to have like 2 Wild Shape slots, and you can choose whether you want to transform into an animal or summon this animal. You can flavor it to kind of look like whatever you want. It's a fiery spirit. It can be literally made of fire, or it could be a pony with a mane of fire. My personal has always, I do big cats. I love a big fiery cat. It's my favorite. But they go after you in initiative, and they have their own stat block and attacks. They also have a really, really fun one, which is fiery teleportation. In the spirit and each willing creature of your choice within 5 feet of it teleport up to 15 feet to an unoccupied space. And then anybody who is left behind that is not taken with you has to make a dex save or take 1d6 plus your plus PB for fire damage. So plus your proficiency bonus.
Such a fun, get out of dodge benefit.
Exactly, right there, just yeet on out of an altercation with a couple of friends, while also kicking them on the way out with a bit of fire.
I love that.
It's a good time.
I absolutely love it. That's super fun. I am I have to play this fairy druid at some point.
Yes, absolutely. You can communicate with your Wildfire Spirit. They do speak whatever languages you speak, plural. So you can communicate with it, and potentially it can understand the people around you, which I think is a fun role play element as well. I just very much picture a little fairy covering your large fire cat's ears and being like, "Stop, I can hear you."
What would happen?
Please, not in front of Kevin. Kevin is legitimately what I named my Wildfire Spirit cat in a most recent game.
I think that's a very good.
How is it?
I can't think of
a cool fantasy spelling or just straight up Kevin?
No, it's straight up Kevin. I was playing in a charity game for World Builders, and she was a hermit that had lived in the woods with her Wildfire Spirit for a long time, and she always just called him Kitty. But she was going off to be a soldier in battle, and she was embarrassed that I can't just call this cool creature of mine Kitty. So when asked and put on the spot, she was like, "It's Kevin."
Amazing.
And that's how I got his name.
I love it. And shout out to World Builders. They're great.
I love World Builders.
In terms of, I know everyone sort of has their preference on ability scores. Sometimes just for speed's sake, I like to go standard array. But Saige, you're our guest today. What's your preference on ability scores?
I'm going to say I do a lot of point buy standard array. I agree for just speed would probably be a good pick for today, though. I'm a big fan of point buy. Good. I rarely roll stats.
I always have the best intentions and go for it, and then I'll roll my 3, my 3 little pools, and then I'm just like, this blows. Never mind. And then just back out and go back to standard array.
Sometimes it can just mean that one person in the party is incredibly powerful, and somebody else is just like, "I'm sorry, you're useless."
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it works out. We had a work game where I was playing a wee frog barbarian. Here he is, and we rolled stats on that, and it was like the best stat roll I've ever done. And he had like a 19 in strength, but he's tiny, and I love him.
That's incredible.
Anyway,
I
all
love
that
rolling
said,
stats
sorry.
because I also tend to not mind if my characters are actually not very good at stuff. And statistically speaking, it works out as often the other way around. But I do find like the standard buy is just a lot faster than for me.
Yeah, definitely.
So for speed's sake, we'll stick here. Although I am missing a wonderful opportunity to showcase the Sanguine dice set, available now to subscribers at dndbeyond.com by not rolling stats, and marketing is going to be very mad at me. That said,
we'll roll some stuff. We'll test some spells.
Yeah, we'll roll some stuff. You'll see them. So obviously, going in here, wisdom going to be our highest stat. And tell me if I'm lying at any point. And I believe we're still going. We're going fairy. We're going. Dex is probably our next highest. I want her to be tiny and flitty and hard to hit. Where to next? You were sort of saying like, especially at early levels, you're going to be a little squishier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Constitution next.
Yeah, I'm going to say Con would be a good pick. That would be my vote on it. You're a tiny fairy, and the more just stability you can have, the better.
Cool.
Because otherwise, somebody's just going to come and like flick you, and you're dead.
Yeah, I think strength is going to be our lowest, just like theme wise.
Yeah.
They're teeny.
Probably. And maybe
Yeah, I'm with that.
Yeah, and then sorry, Amy, were you saying 10 or 12 for intelligence?
I was saying maybe come up from the bottom, strength, and then intelligence, and charisma in the middle, maybe?
I dig that. Cool. Awesome. All right, we got our stats going here. I'm into it.
Right.
We're going to change this name. I'm not into the name.
Not feeling Drew anymore?
Not feeling Drew. I'm big. I'm weird on names. You two. I have played, just dozens and dozens of hours of Dragon Age, and then just been like, I don't like what I called you, and start over. Like I will do that. I will absolutely do that. Before they added I'm weird about characters, you guys. Before they added the face person in the Thieves Guild in Skyrim, I would bail. I would bail out on so many characters just because I was like, I'm tired of looking at you.
That's so funny. We're definitely getting some suggestions in chat. One of the first suggestions I saw was Drusilla.
Well, like
Drusilla, like from Buffy. Always a fan of that.
I like Drusilla. I think this is going to be a lady. It's going to be a lady fairy. So yeah, Drusilla, I'm very into. As chat's suggesting names, any backgrounds? Yeah. Any backgrounds you had in mind for this, Saige?
Ooh. Backgrounds, I spend so much time going back and forth on. Backgrounds is mine where I'm just like, it's not right. No, I should change it.
Right.
They could be like a far traveler in some capacity. Every character that I make always ends up being a charlatan because I'm a monster. I just can't write not a criminal, and I don't know why. from like deep bad criminal to like petty criminals. Just a little crime.
Just like a tiny bit of crime.
Criminal spectrum.
I'm going to throw this out there. I think I'm on the opposite spectrum of you. I like a noble thrown out of their comfort zone.
Oh, fun.
I feel like I do it a lot. I go to that well a lot, but there's something very funny to me about like fairy royalty that has wandered out of the Fae, and now no one cares how esteemed they were by Queen Titania. Or if they actually even were. I kind of dig that. So yeah, I think we're gonna go noble.
All right.
She saw herself as a duchess among the fairies.
Love it.
Yeah.
But is it the case that like she was considered important and ran away from that, or wasn't considered important but would like to sell herself as that everywhere she goes?
Interesting.
I think maybe the court just like found a clever way to get rid of her by sending her on a mission that she was never going to be able to accomplish.
Oh, it's Invader Zim.
Yeah, full on
Zim.
Invader Zim. Yeah, or let's ditch Joe at homecoming. You know, like either or. Could you find what? Huh?
Do you want to talk?
Oh,
do you want to talk about it?
No, I'm good. Hang on, it's just something came up. I'm good. I'm fine. You want to talk about spells?
Yeah, let's talk about spells.
Let's do it.
Right. So I'm like, I've definitely got a character sheet pulled up. I definitely have D&D Beyond open, another tab here too, so I can be like looking through things. So you start off with a good few spells because of this. You start off with Fairy Fire twice on accident because of the overlap of fairy things and druid things.
I'm into that.
Burning
Dual-wielding
Hands.
Fairy Fire.
Right. You get Burning Hands, you get Cure Wounds, which is really lovely. Flaming Sphere and Scorching Ray. So like, you start off with some good spells.
Yeah,
they're definitely thematic.
And you're looking at these are the Wildfire circle spells, right?
Yeah, so this is everything that you start with base before adding anything by having Wildfire and Fairy. So you have some innately from your race and some from the subclass. So I don't know about y'all, but I tend to like really theme my characters where I'm like, oh, if they do fire, they do fire. Or if they do
fire hard.
Like,
yeah.
Which paints myself into corners all the time because like this happens to me constantly. On the Black Dice Society, I do predominantly psychic damage. That's very much her thing. She does like some psychic and some necrotic, and that's it. And then we get into areas where somebody is immune to psychic and necrotic damage, and I'm just like, I'll sit this one out. I have nothing. What am I gonna do? Punch it? I'm a sorcerer.
You're just like yeah. You just got to hang out until someone takes Juggernaut's hat off.
Yeah, essentially. So of course this comes to mind for me, and we get here, and I'm like, every fire spell ever.
I like this. Fire, I'm thinking, you know, it's not the most original idea for a fairy because Tinkerbell exists, but like fire and temper, I think, is the theme here to sort of build our spells around.
Okay. I can dig that. I can totally dig that. Let's see.
So let's start with our cantrips.
So
we've got
cantrips as well.
Yeah, you know, sort of out the gate, and you know, obviously we don't. We want to be, you know, a little utility again. You know, just based on the advantages that the two of you were talking about with the druid early on. You get that little bit of healing. You get a little bit of this. You get a little bit of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, if there's a way we can balance and be thematic, I think I'd be really interested in it.
Wildfire's not going to automatically bring us the healing, so we're definitely going to want to make sure we compensate.
We did.
A little bit there.
We got as a druid, we got Cure Wounds off the bat. That's what we automatically got. But something like a healing word would probably be really, really nice. But from cantrips, we're not going to find anything terribly helpful for healing in cantrips. But there's the basics that are thematic, like control flames or produce flame. It might be nice, just kind of taking control of the setting. You might put out a fire. You might help somebody that way.
Yeah, we'll go control and produce.
And then Shillelagh or Thorn Whip are recommended for damage, just as backup options. One of the other of those.
I do dig those. I do dig.
Oh, we only get 2. Okay, right. We're only level 3. Right. So if we're choosing 2 cantrips, we could take 1 thematic and 1 helpful.
Yeah, I did control flame.
Okay, so maybe we do control flame and then like a thorn whip or a
yeah. Let's go. You know what? Thorn whip is just fun.
Thorn whip's
fun.
I think that's a great idea.
Figure out it's a fiery burning thorn whip. I'm into that, and I absolutely dig control flame, especially with a character like this. Maybe she's even able to communicate, or she likes to tell little like stories with little tiny fire people she made, things like that. I think that could be kind of fun.
Adorable. Fire puppets as a specialization for control flame. I'm into it.
Oh my god, amazing.
Yeah, kind of into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and my favorite thing about druids, for those who have never played a druid, and this is not exclusive to the druid class, but it is a wonderful thing about it, you can choose new spells every long rest.
Oh, which is super
prepare
fun,
out of your known,
yeah.
Super
and you
helpful.
know all of the druid spells, which is 43 different spells at this level alone. It is so nice, including prepared spells as also a warlock player, as a warlock and a sorcerer.
And I am reminded of the one thing I know about druids, which especially works for this theme we're building, is because at some point I'm going to be able to cast heat metal.
Yes.
Which I'm in my home game. In my home game, my artificer gained access to heat metal, and the first time I used it, my DM was just kind of like, "I hate this."
Oh my god, that's amazing! I love it. And yes, you have it. You have access to heat metal already.
Oh yeah, we are on the road. It's a second level spell. Yes. Well, hang on.
Yeah,
then.
check
We're
that
just
chart for
going
me.
to go
What
right
do we
ahead.
get? What? At third, we get what? 2 cantrips, 4 first level, second, 2 second level for our spell slots. Yeah.
Yes. 2 second level spell slots.
Catching up.
4 first level slots.
Yep. All right, heat metal is selected. That's just kind of a non-negotiable, especially just as a D&D Beyond employee. We are bloodbound to give that spell priority.
Plus, we are fire themed, so I'm just saying.
Yeah, no,
it works
absolutely.
Perfectly.
Am I not
if
going
there's
to heat
anybody
metal?
in chat who's never used heat metal, you can target an enemy and you can heat whatever metal. It could be if they're wearing any kind of metal armor. That's a nightmare. If they're holding a weapon that is metal, they have to either drop it or take continuous damage while holding it. It's spicy.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Very fun.
It can. You've got to break a person's concentration to. It's lovely. So yeah, very very into that spell. But looking at our level 1s, let's see here. Angry and fiery.
Angry and fiery.
There's always Drist's favorite spell, Fairy Fire.
We have
get away with Thunderwave. It's pretty off theme for us.
I was looking at Thunderwave too, though. It is angry,
and we can always flavor it, right?
Yeah, I think Thunderwave would be fun because you're so small, and having this like thing just kind of like erupt out of her anger.
And you know, it's displaced energy from a fire starting. Sure.
There you go.
Oh,
perfectly on theme. Perfectly on theme.
Love it.
Healing word. I know we were talking a little bit about.
That would be very useful.
And I'm into healing word a lot. And then, you know, are there any? What do you guys think? Are there utility spells, detect magic? Or any just like, are there any things, Saige, that you're like, I always take this as a druid, like no matter what?
I am a big fan of detect magic. I will say, I think that that's a very, very good one. Things like speak with animals can be really, really useful as well, depending on how you're playing this character and how kind of like earthy and naturey you want to be. Those are kind of like utility to me. Beast bond, anything that gives you something with animals and some kind of like, hey, the rest of my party can't do this, but I have this special thing that I can provide the party of calming an angry animal or asking it a question.
Totally into that. Yeah.
Maybe speak with animals.
Yeah,
I like a suggestion from chat. The Goodberry does seem on brand for a fairy. I feel like I wasn't sure if it fit our anger, but it is cool.
You know what? Yeah, and it's just a fun spell.
I like the idea of just like picking up good berries and hurling them into the mouths of your companions. Just
popping them in there. Yeah, no, totally into that. Do we replace healing word or do we just take them both?
So healing word does at first level 1d4 of healing, and each good berry is 1 HP. How many good berries do you get in that?
Up to 10.
10 berries appear in your hand.
I'd say it could replace Healing Word, depending on if you have an actual healer in your party and you don't have to be the main healer.
Yeah. Because we do have Cure Wounds, so I don't know. I might be.
Yeah.
Goodberry plus Cure Wounds might cover us?
I think so.
Yeah, I dig that. Yeah, just like a nice, like, sort of like hot Cheeto type Goodberry situation. Is just keeping this character very on theme. Any other must-haves? I think we've got 2 more spots.
Okay, in first level. You could go for resistance could be really interesting. To help out someone in your party.
That could be very cool. Yes.
You could take what else would be like angry? Resistance is a cantrip. Pardon, I scrolled too far up. Never mind that. Okay. Jump would be funny. Because if it's you touch a creature and that creature's jump distance is tripled, you could touch your wildfire spirit and just leap.
Oh, true. That's okay, oh, you know what?
Let's do it. Yeah. We got to do that.
That's pretty funny.
Very fun. That's very fun. And Ice Knife. Not really, you guys. I don't know. I mean, with fairies, the fae, the mischievousness, the mischief, charm person.
Ooh, I can dig it. I love charm person.
Let's go.
I always love it very right, and then you get in. I feel like charm person is the number one spell to make your DM go, "Are you sure you want to do that?
Are you sure?" And you're like, "Yes."
Are you sure you want to do that? I am.
So we have, I think, a pretty fun wildfire fairy built here. I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, we do.
I'm going to just really quick, go through, add my fangs.
Yeah.
Starting equipment added. We can really get in. I can really get in and mess with the inventory later on. Here's Drusilla.
I will say, if we end up reflavoring these or choosing ones differently, I wasn't sure where this would come in, but in the additional druid spells, depending on how hard we want to go in our theme, there's a second level spell for continual flame, which could combo somewhat nicely with some of our other stuff. Just something to keep in mind for mornings that we wake up and feel like it, I think.
That's fun. I love that.
No, I absolutely dig that. Yeah. Okay. I think we've built a pretty sweet, hot-headed Fey Druid here. I'm pretty happy.
A hot-headed Fey Druid.
We see what you did there.
Fey Druid. Hey, are there any other kinds to make?